Hey everybody, today I am going to be reviewing Edington. This was directed by Ari Aster. This is Ari Aster's fourth feature-length film. He is obviously known for his ventures into the horror genre with Hereditary and Midsummer. I've always seen the horror genre as like the perfect stylistic breeding ground for a new director. It's a great way to find your visual and cinematic techniques. But his most recent film, Beau is Afraid, was easily his most ambitious, and it felt like it was a foray into a new type of genre. Yes, you do have a lot of horror elements within it, but it's also like this existential, like this personal odyssey that involves comedy and horror. It's very cartoonish. It is quite an uneven film for me, but I still think about it to this day. I think it has some of the most fantastic filmmaking in it that he has ever done. It did make my top films of the year that year, and I don't know, it just made me even more excited to see where his creative instincts would lead him from there. But here he's making a Western of sorts, but it's a modern Western that takes place during the 2020 pandemic, COVID pandemic, of course, and it's taking place in New Mexico, but a fictional town in New Mexico called Edington. New Mexico is where Aster grew up as well. But with the pandemic, obviously came all this increasing isolation, and therefore it's like racial tensions are building, and political protests become bigger and bigger, and there's like all these increased threats, all this external noise, the threat of AI technology as an example. So it is this chain reaction of hysteria that builds and it gathers, and it is often triggered, yes, by paranoia, but in this movie, I think it's more triggered by personal stresses. I think Aster is a brilliant visionary who can take all of these layers and like weave them into this kaleidoscope of sorts. So obviously it has some cohesion because it is mirrored throughout. And I do think that's his truest strengths. They lie in crafting the world and the patterns as an experience, not necessarily in taking those ideas and fleshing them out to a strong degree. Sure, there are a lot of stray threads in this film. There are a lot of ideas that I think overwhelm and they ultimately stifle the experience in spurts, and not everything lands or feels fully developed. That being said, I really liked this. I thought it was a very interesting piece. It is Ari Aster, so that's either going to be a selling point for you or not. For me, it has always been a selling point. I couldn't help while watching this film constantly thinking back to that first act of Beau is Afraid, which I think is a key to Aster's perspective as a filmmaker. Frankly, I think it would have been the most brilliant short film if they just wanted to take that singular act and make it its own thing. It has this architectural quality to it, where it's like this tapestry of anxiety and maximalism. It's just amazing. I think it's some of Aster's best work. Everything from the foreground to the background is interesting in that film, whether it's, something that maybe some extras are doing in the background, or it's like a poster in the distance. It's just, there's always something specific. And Edington employs so many of those strengths throughout this entire film, not just the first act, but in a slightly more subtle way. It's a lot less cartoonish abstract compared to Beau. He is just brilliant, I think, at blurring the edges of social behavior in a way that is terrifying. And it's like he's pushing into weird areas that are, it's a little bit farce, it's a little bit violent, it's a theater of the absurd, essentially, where behaviors are dissolving into the abstract. And with this film, there's like this feeling of blind spots where it's like there's always moving pieces and you're not sure exactly what's always going on because it's in your peripherals. I think it's a great way to build suspense because your eyes are constantly moving. As an audience member, it constantly makes you feel out of control. And it's a perfect way to represent the feeling of the modern times, especially when it comes to the media and how fragmented it is and how instantaneous it is. And the town itself is a fantastic setting. It reminds me of some of the great like John Ford westerns. Obviously No Country for Old Men is a big influence, but it has that contemporary twist where you've got like the aged buildings and the history that is built into this rickety town, and yet like within the musical score they'll have like this guitar amp, like this electronic hum throughout that is so unsettling. I really liked Joaquin Phoenix in this film. I think this is one of his better performances he's given in a while. I think he just represents this like manic, desperate, sad, anxious, and also like this childlike wavelength that Aster is always wanting to tap into. I really like this character because he's somebody that you can see obviously is quite in the wrong, and yet he's relatable, I think, to a lot of people. He's somebody that grows more bitter and hostile towards the people around them and is constantly claiming it is for political reasons. And yes, while some of it I'm sure is pointedly political for some people, I think his anger, his pain, it's coming from a much deeper place, often a place of insecurity. And, when you are insecure, it helps to villainize the external for yourself to keep you in control. As an example, Joaquin is the sheriff and he is wanting to run for the mayor, but a lot of his motivation behind that does not come from like having passion for his beliefs. It comes from his own domestic conflicts with his wife, played by Emma Stone. This film does make fun of both the right and the left, and it makes fun of how easily our virtue signaling can become part of our delusions. I laughed out loud several times in this film, but there were other times I found the commentary to be lacking or maybe underdeveloped. And I think that's part of the problem when you choose to tackle so many moving pieces without finding a proper place to house it all. It's like some of those stray ideas, they're going to get away from you. And then you begin wondering as the movie draws to a close, it's like, what is the perspective exactly? What is the driving force that is guiding this funnel? To me, this film seems more interested in marinating within the complexities of this modern era rather than developing a perspective on it, like I said. And in certain ways, that is effective. It's like it's capturing the essence of this crazy, chaotic time that is unlike any other time in history. And when it comes to his writing, I don't sense that he's coming from a place of serious judgment or condescension when it comes to, looking at all of these people. I think he's interested in humans, in human behavior, and kind of the domino effect of a situation like this and how it leads to such curious motivations. In the third act of this film, it's kind of starting out as a satire and it slowly becomes a crime thriller. And by the climax, I think it's completely submerged in the cinematic quality of things, the sound and the visuals. It's certainly quite tense, it's well done. And it felt as though Aster here is trying to match all of his ambitious concepts with some cinematic prowess that maybe he's known for. But again, I'm not sure what I'm gaining fully from that perspective. That said, I do think this is a unique film. I think it's clever. I think it's disturbing. It's unlike anything you're going to see out there. And I think Aster is a special type of filmmaker. You're not going to see work like his. I do not see this as his magnum opus or anywhere near it, but again, it's like each time he makes a movie, I get more and more excited to see what he's going to come up with next. And I absolutely feel that after seeing Edington. So yes, I'm absolutely recommending this to you. If you are just a fan of the cinema, especially if you love Ari Aster, there's enough to chew on here for sure. And that is my review. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to plug my website as always. It is deepfocuslens.com. I'm an artist, I do commissioned portraits, and I also sell prints of my work. If that is something that you're interested in, you can always go to the website below. And if you have a question about a commission or a print, you can always email me. My email is in the description box below. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to my patrons, who are great. Guys, thank you so much for your support. Welcome to all the new members. If you are interested in supporting, the link for that is below, as well as the rest of my social media information. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.